My name is Guimarães. I'm going to present this paper, Applying Genetic Programming to Improve Interpretability in Machine Learning Models. This work was developed by the PhD student, Leonardo Ferreira, which is the first author, and in collaboration with Dr. Rodrigo Silva, the second author. This is the summary of this presentation. I begin with a brief introduction. Then I will explain our proposal of using genetic programming as an explainer for black box models. Then I will present the experiments, a case study, and our conclusions. It's well known that machine learning models, most machine learning models tend to produce black box, what we call black box models. And in these cases, we have this known trade-off between accuracy and interpretability. Usually, those models that present higher accuracy also have poor interpretability. The most well-known case is deep learning, for instance. So why interpretability is important? And what is interpretability? Here we take this definition from this reference. Interpretability is the ability to classify something or someone according to their main characteristics. It's also a technique that helps the understanding of decisions of AI systems by a given audience, giving rise to the field called explainable AI. It's also a technical challenge of explaining AI decisions made by black box models. Interpretability is an important issue because humans tend to be less willing to accept decisions that are not directly interpretable. Also, predictions based on understandable choices give more confidence to the user on using that model. And finally, users should be able to understand the models in order to trust them. This issue of explainable AI is very important, especially in some critical applications for which predictions must be explained. Some examples are healthcare applications, criminal justice, finance, and military applications. Our proposed method is called Genetic Programming Explainer, GPX, and we try to develop a local model of this black box model using genetic programming. This genetic programming explainer is able to develop both linear and non-linear models, and it's also embedded with a natural feature selection, which is developed through the evolution of the genetic programming. The main idea is that given an instance that we want to explain, a test instance that we want to explain, we generate some instances, some samples around this instance, and we obtain the predictions of the black box model to those instances. And then we use genetic programming to fit the predictions given by the black box model, and therefore generating a symbolic regression for these predictions. So the main goal of our study is that given a black box model that we want, whose decisions we want to explain, we generate a symbolic regression model by using genetic programming to explain decisions of this black box model, and therefore obtaining a less opaque model to work with. So this process of local explanation with GPX is illustrated in this figure. Suppose we have an instance that we want to explain. It's represented by the blue cross in this figure. We generate a noise, some samples, noise samples around this instance. We call this the noise set eta, and each sample in the noise set is represented by Si. We give this noise set to the black box, obtaining the predictions of the black box model to each of these samples, which are given by the values G of Si. And then we use genetic programming to obtain a function f that fits these predictions given by the black box model. So therefore, this idea is formulated in this equation. We want to find this function, this optimal function f star, which minimizes in the space of functions the distance between the predictions given by the black box model, which are given by G of Si, and the predictions given by the function f. This is an example of how GPX provides a local explanation for a given problem. We have this moons dataset, which has two classes. We give some instances of this dataset to generate a black box model, to train a black box model. This is the surface of separation produced by the black box model. And we have an instance here that we want to explain, whose decision we want to explain. We generate a noise set around this instance, and then we fit the predictions of the black box model by using genetic programming. In this particular case, genetic programming was able to find a linear model that is able to explain, at least locally, the decisions performed by the complex model. In our experiments, we have selected 10 different classification data sets and 10 different regression data sets from public repositories. So we have 20 data sets in our experiments. We tested the following complex black box models: random forest, deep neural networks, and support vector machines. So we applied this, we trained black box models, these three black box models, to each of the 20 data sets. And we compare GPX with local explainers such as Lime and Decision Tree. This is to show what we understand by, what we want to mean by saying that a model understands, a given explainer F understands the complex model G. This is done when its error on the noise set relative to the complex model predictions is small. So for classification problems, we have this function, this error UC, given by the average error on the noise set, and the same thing for regression problems. With this meaning of understanding, we now can explain our setup, experiment setup. So for each data set, we separated 8% of the data for training the black box model and 20% for testing. For each sample, for each instance in the testing data, we generate a local model. We generate a noise set around this instance, and then we fit a local model to this noise set using genetic programming. So this noise set is used to train an explainer who is able to explain locally the decisions made by the black box. So by this process, and when the error is small, by this process, we say that the explainer is able to understand the more complex model. Here are the results that we obtained. We performed this pairwise permutation test for the accuracy difference and also for the error difference for the regression problems. And the results show that GPX is significantly better than decision tree, and also both decision trees and GPX are better than LIME in understanding the black box model. For the regression problems, there is no significant difference between decision tree, actually regression tree, and GPX. But there is a significant difference between decision tree and GPX and LIME. This is a test case study in which we have the Boston data set. Boston data set is a data set in which we have 10 features, and we want to predict the price of houses in Boston. For this particular instance, genetic programming was able to develop this equation to explain locally the model, and using 3 of the 10 features. So for this particular instance, we were able to identify the most important features to predict the price. For a different instance in the test data, we have a different equation that best fits the model. And this is another case study for the diabetes data set using random forest as a complex model. For a given instance, we generate this, genetic programming generates this local model. And this local model represents, this tree represents this equation. And this equation shows that, for instance, for this person, the variable body mass index and the blood serum measurements were the most important features to predict diabetes progression for that specific patient. And by analyzing this equation provided by genetic programming, we are able to analyze which features should be increased or decreased in order to increase or decrease diabetes progression. So these are the conclusions of our study. We presented an approach to interpretability based on genetic programming. This approach has shown to be more flexible than other methods available in the literature. It presented better or similar accuracy when compared to LIME and decision tree. And the case studies have shown how the proposed approach can be used in real-world applications to extract information from the equations obtained by genetic programming. These are the references, and these are the funding agencies of this work. Thank you very much for watching this presentation.